Joining us now is Texas Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne. Okay, it's great to have you on, Congresswoman. We also had 6 congressional offices hit by a hack. We've got the SEC and FINRA warning that brokerage accounts, across the country held by the folks out there could get hacked too. We're talking ransomware attacks, beef industry, gas pipeline, water supply in Florida. Is there enough in the infrastructure bill and what's on the agenda to stop this?
No. I mean, the answer to that is no. I mean, what we see in the infrastructure bill is such a tiny percentage of actual infrastructure issues in projects that we actually need to be able to open up and have economic recovery, to have a return on the investment, to be able to focus on exactly those issues that you're talking about on ransomware. And we have a crumbling infrastructure, but we also have a very vulnerable infrastructure, as was reflected with the Colonial Pipeline disaster that we just saw. What we're seeing is a Biden administration who's not willing to work at all in a bipartisan or a compromised manner, and he seems to be holding the crumbling American infrastructure hostage to Green New Deal programs and policies. And it's a shame, because we are spending trillions of dollars on these programs, and we're still going to have that crumbling infrastructure that's going to have to be addressed.
Yeah, the Colonial Pipeline is nearly half of the energy for the East Coast. And, the CEO today, as you probably heard, was saying, we had to pay that ransom because, we could have had an outage for months, if not years. So, so he testified to that. And Congresswoman, all right, let's talk about this. We've got a new inflation report coming out this Thursday. You've talked about this, too. Prices from food to clothes and housing have been rising. We saw mixed action on Wall Street today. Did you hear about this, the news that Senator Chuck Schumer is working with Republican senators on an $880 billion infrastructure bill compromise? So that looks like it's in the works. What do you say to that?
I hope it is. I mean, I think you need to have both parties at the table to be able to be fully inclusive and representative of our constituencies. You need to have both parties at the table. So I'm optimistic, but I don't know how realistic that is given the trend that we've seen in the last 5 months.
Okay, so we've got, the Democrats, we're going into the midterms, right? And there's little to show voters coming up in the midterms. Here's what we're hearing. You've heard about this. The Senate rules, the parliamentarian says you only have one shot at budget reconciliation in order to cram everything in just one budget reconciliation vote at that lower 50-vote Democrat, only Democrat party line threshold. You only got one shot. Are they going to try to cram the entire Biden agenda into that one bill? It could be $6 trillion.
They're going to try. I mean, they're obviously going to try, because otherwise you're going to actually have to have a debate on some of the projects and some of the programs and the policies. And they haven't been choosing that. They haven't been looking at policies. They've been looking at party over people. And unfortunately, I think it's the American people that are going to end up being on the losing side of that stick. But yeah, I think they're trying to push through as much as they possibly can, while they still have control. And, we're real optimistic that in 2022, given the programs that we've seen coming down, the crippling debt, all the issues that we're not resolving that need to be resolved, and all the issues that we're creating under this Biden administration, that, yeah, in 2022, I think you're going to see the House, again, Republicans taking over the House and actually having some solutions for the people. But right now, we're not being responsible. And I say we, the Biden administration and the far left Socialists who seem to be controlling the Democrat Party, are not taking these things seriously. They're focused on Green New Deals and wish list programs, as opposed to what the American people right now desperately need.
Yeah, and that's Democrat division, right? And, a lot of critics saw this coming last year, that this would split the Democrat Party. And now Democrat Senator Dick Durbin warning that Democrats don't have all 50 votes. Not all the Democrats are on board with a lot of the stuff. So it looks like the Democrat agenda and the Biden agenda is in peril. So, Joe Manchin's not going to go for the vote bill either. So a lot of that stuff you may not see this year, right?
I hope not. And I think it's for the best. Again, if you have debate and you have compromise, that's why you have that kind of compromise. That's why you have those discussions and everybody at the table while those policies are being created. But when you try to shove it down, everyone's throat to the last minute without that kind of debate, without that kind of compromise, without being reflective of what the American people want, from both sides of the aisle, that's when you're going to see this really bad policy come through. And I hope that the senators recognize on both sides of the aisle how crippling this could be for the American economy and for the American people.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, the other thing, too, is we're breaking news coming in. Republican senators are stepping up saying we're not going to go for this global corporate tax that Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is talking about with a group of 7 countries, a 15% minimum tax. You know, the Republican senators are saying no, and they're not going to go for that either. Your final word.
I hope they don't. I mean, I would really recommend to Democrats that they get out there and they start talking to these businesses and finding out what they need to be able to open, that they start talking to their employees. And find out, you know, these are people who are looking for jobs. These are people who want to get back to work. These are people who need their jobs to be able to be successful, to be able to pay their mortgages, to be able to pay their insurance, to be able to buy food. They need to get out, and instead of just hanging out in the floors on Capitol Hill, they need to get out and start talking to the people that they represent.
All right. Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.